Today, Michelle and I dive into something that changed for both of us since we started investing, how we think about money. So you might be surprised about which habits we let go of and the shifts we made. So we're sharing a few personal stories and reflections on personal finance today and how investing has affected the way we actually spend money. So if you're curious, stay tuned. You're listening to Investing Mastermind Podcast. My name is Signe.
And I'm Michelle Markey.
So for me, I have been buying stocks for many years, but the thing that changed for me was learning about Warren Buffett's strategy, because that's when I really saw, okay, this is working. This method really works for me. So once I started actually seeing a return, that's when my personal finance perspective also changed, which is kind of interesting. And I know, Michelle, that for you, unlike me, where I've been through many strategies before I actually found Warren Buffett, and you were lucky to find Warren Buffett even when you were quite young. But what about you? Have your spending habits actually changed since you found Warren Buffett's strategy?
I've always been a more cautious spender. So in my own consumption, I used to be more extremely frugal, especially in my 20s and 30s. I've been more conscientious about spending, but lately now, more in my mid 30s, I'm actually willing to spend more than I had been. I used to be like so super duper saving all the time and a lot more careful in some ways with my actual spending, but some of my risk appetite with stock market investing and also options trading has changed somewhat. So it's a little bit of an interesting reverse trend than maybe what one might expect. And just to explain that a little bit, I'm generally still pretty frugal as a consumer. I don't spend unnecessarily. I don't really have much of a desire for materialistic things. And I've mostly been that way for a very long time. Like I buy mostly just the things I actually really feel like I need. And that's it. And I try to still save usually toward 80 to 90% of my income. So when I say save, that also means investing some of it. And that part has been pretty consistent, but now I've become more conservative in terms of my investing and not wanting to do as much risky things as in like 6 years ago with some of my money in options trading. So I've become more risk averse in many ways and maybe done more defensive things as a result of my evolution in terms of Warren Buffett investing style. And I'll get a little bit more into how my actual investing style may have been affected. But what about you, Signe, and your spending and also investing habits?
I feel I'm the exactly opposite, to be honest. When I was in my 20s, I would live large, much larger than I was actually capable of. So that meant I would actually, over time, take on credit, have credit card debt, and it was not fun. It was not fun, to have a lot of debt, and I felt really guilty and I felt bad. And what I didn't realize back then was that the bank loved me. I was young, I had a steady job, I was taking on debt, paying a lot of interest on that debt. They love a person like me. So whenever I wanted to borrow more money from the bank, they were like, sure, because they knew I had a long life of working and spending ahead of me. But then for myself, I came to, I've been through different kinds of wake up calls throughout my life. So I went through my first wake up call when I was about to, a couple of years before I turned 30, where that ended and I was able to actually quite fast pay off my debt and haven't taken on debt since. But I was still living paycheck to paycheck for sure, where I honestly thought that you got paid and then you had to spend it all. And that was how you were supposed to live life. And when I might save money for presents or Christmas or, I didn't always do that either. I would always be surprised when it was Christmas. Oh my goodness, I need to bring Christmas presents for the party. But after I learned that, it was still living paycheck to paycheck, which was how I thought life was going, and I think a lot of people out there still think that, even though for me now, it's absolutely shocking to be living life like that. I would never live life like that, but that's also started happening in my 30s. But then learning Warren Buffett style investing actually made me even more frugal in terms of, okay, so instead of buying a cafe latte, maybe I could spend so here in Denmark, cafe lattes are more expensive than in the US. So maybe it's like $5 to $7 you pay for, and maybe it's the same in the US now. But back in the day, it was, that kind of money. I actually don't know what it costs anymore because I haven't done it for years. I don't. So first of all, I don't drink coffee anymore, but even buying some kind of drink, another drink, I don't do that. It's rare that I do that. And of course, if I'm meeting up a friend or something at a cafe, of course, I'm buying things like that, but it's not to the extent it was earlier, because now I'm thinking about, ooh, I could actually invest those money and earn money on investing rather than just, this quick fix of getting something. So I'm much better than I used to be. What do you think when you hear a story
That,
like that?
that's great. And you're not alone. That has happened to a lot of people, that you could have a paycheck and just think it's okay to spend all of it and maybe save 10 or 15% of it. And the reason I've always felt opposite of that is because I had a parent who taught me that I should save for a rainy day in case something bad happens. Like, what if you have unexpected medical bills or your car breaks down? And I never wanted to be in a position where I had so much debt that I can't afford really critical things that could happen. So I have another family member who has struggled with debt. And I just learned from some of these examples of, if I don't want to end up in a place of living paycheck to paycheck, I don't want to have that difficult life situation like that family member did. So keeping that in mind, I've always felt like it was the safer path to save more and then spending. So I've always lived below my means. And that allowed me to always be able to afford anywhere I wanted to travel. So it's counterintuitive, but I could have just as fulfilling of a life as any Instagram person who shows off amazing places they go. And maybe I used to be more like that when I was younger on social media, of like showing off, hey, look at me in New Zealand and look at me in Scandinavian countries. But just because I was there doesn't mean I had so much money, but it's because I was smart with saving my money so I could afford these trips. People out there might feel like, oh, I can never have a great life without spending money. Some people might think that, like, oh, I'm not going to have a good time if I'm not spending money. But if you can realize that you actually don't have to spend a lot of money to have a good life, you can have a happy, fulfilling, interesting, and fun life full of whatever you want to do. And it doesn't require spending much. Now, if you want to lead certain lifestyles, like if you're a type of person who likes to have, say, those American Express experiences and fancy wine tasting tours and going horseback riding in a very fancy venue, like sometimes those things can be pricey. If you want to lead certain experiences that just cost a lot of money, then that's your lifestyle. Then you have to find a way to afford that. But if you are willing to delay gratification, I think that's what it boils down to, Signe, is like, before, in the life you led, you may have wanted instant gratification. And now, after Warren Buffett style investing, you started to appreciate more of delayed gratification for a better payoff later. Is that some of what you felt?
Yeah, 100%. But it's also because, you were talking about how you had a parent that told you what to do. And to be honest, my parents lived paycheck to paycheck. So that's what I learned. And when I was a kid and, for example, got equivalent to $1 to go buy candy, I would spend all my money on candy. It never crossed my mind that I should not spend all my money on candy, even though, I would get a big candy bag for whatever money I would get. And, somebody would say, oh, here's this money, go buy some candy. Then I would actually spend that money on candy. So what I'm teaching my kids is again, I hope you can use these tips at home as well. But I always teach my kids, like, first of all, they can't spend all their money. So if they want to go to a toy store or anything like that, they need to have money left in the purse. So they have physical coins because they're kids still, but they need to have money back in the purse after leaving the store. So they are not allowed to spend all their money in the store. I also teach them that they need to, whenever they're given money, a certain amount of those money needs to be put in their little piggy bank. Also, I'm not too good on that, to be completely honest, but now that we're talking about it, I actually want to be better. But I usually also tell them that they need to give some money out or keep some money for charity. Red Cross was here recently, and my son went and, voluntarily gave some of his money to Red Cross. And that's part of what I taught them, that they needed to give out money. But now that I'm saying it, I actually could be better. So right now we're donating a lot of toys to charities that they don't need anymore, but still, I really want them to also learn that it also fulfills a need to give to other people, and how you can actually be very happy and proud when you help someone out. So that's also what they need to learn. It's something that I did not learn as a child, and something that's just so important for me that my kids get those habits. And I can see the difference between my kids. So one child really follow those rules rigidly, and the other one is always trying to push the limit and see, oh, okay, can I buy that toy? And let's see if, I can spend all my money, and, so they're very different. Also, one is have a really, I think, healthy relationship to money, and the other one, we still need to work a little. He's
Yeah.
more like me, to be honest,
Ah, funny. Well,
as
also
a child.
maybe a little younger too. The concept has not yet sunk in yet of what it might
Yeah,
mean. And I mean, that's wonderful, Signe,
exactly.
of what you're teaching your children in having the kind of money habits that you have now. And you want to instill that in your children so that they have better futures and that they're more prepared to succeed in life. And what you're also teaching them is a principle that just goes beyond self-satisfaction of it's not only delayed, but also like the concept of I'm very fortunate in everything I have. I have a roof over my head. I have parents who provide for me. I have so many things that many children around the world don't have. And your children might realize that. And that's why your son voluntarily gave to the Red Cross, is this principle of there are people out there who are not in as fortunate of a position as I am, and I am in a place where I can help other people. And that idea of it's better to give than to receive is powerful, because I feel like the people who are usually ending up in the best situations in life are the people who want to be givers. And this is a powerful lesson also that I think Guy Spear puts out there in the universe, an investor we follow, is he tries to be as giving as he can be to other people and help them along. And I think that's probably returned back to him so many times over, instead of a more greedy mindset. Like people could be greedy and they could be trying to take money from people like Bernie Madoff. But if you don't do that, if you're not so much of a taker and you're more of a giver, you'll realize it will come back to you in so many ways that you don't expect. And it's not like when you give money, you're expecting something back from it. You shouldn't feel that way. If you're giving money thinking I'm going to get something back for this, that's not the right attitude. But in being a giving person, we get rewarded in life in some other way. You don't know what it is, but there's something magical about it. Of if you recognize you're in a fortunate place, you're able to delay gratification, and you're not so self-centered that you're able to give to others. You can't help but have a successful life, I think.
We talked about this topic we should talk about. And one thing I actually did not think about when we talked about it, Michelle, was that right now I'm actually going through one of those periods again where I'm ready for that next level of learning about personal finance and getting to that new, I want to be even more wise. And Jesse Istler, who is married to Sarah Blakely, I actually love this. Sarah Blakely's husband. Usually it's always the other way around, but Sarah Blakely's husband, and Sarah Blakely is the owner of Spanx, very, very admirational business leader. She has a husband who is actually also very successful in his business, but not as known as Sarah Blakely. So he mentioned a audiobook that he was listening to as a young man, and I'm listening to it because he recommended it recently as something of actually, you know, as a business owner to listen to in order to actually know more. But I can feel I'm ready and starving for that new level, because I had that shift in my life of being an employee to now being a business owner, and now, you know, thinking differently about also investing in growth sometimes, to actually, you know, actually do spend money sometimes on certain things that will grow you, so that you might need to actually let go of some money, and you're like, okay, I'm going to spend a lot of money on this, but then it's actually going to take you to that next level. And that's where I am right now. I'm ready for learning even more, to be even more wise with my personal finance, also as this new life I'm living as a business owner instead of getting a salary. And I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think we should talk about that, like of next level personal finance and income generation, the opportunities that could be abounding. So I think that's a wonderful idea, Signe. And to wrap up today, I think on the whole, I would say I hope I'm a better saver, investor, consumer as a result of some Warren Buffett. I made some mistakes early on that actually had more to do with options trading, vis-a-vis what we learned from Phil Town. Of we learned not only Warren Buffett style investing, but also options trading. And I wanted to put some of the Buffett principles to practice. And some of my investing strategies have somewhat been improving since then. It didn't pay off right away, but I made some pretty big mistakes earlier on with the options trading part that I have avoided repeating. So at least I didn't make those mistakes again. But yeah, it's just kind of funny how normally you would think people improve from Warren Buffett style investing, and mine have been a little slow. I dug myself a hole at first, and I've been trying to dig myself out of ever since. And I'm probably around break even, if not slightly profitable at this time. But I guess maybe even if I had never come across Warren Buffett and I just stayed in index funds all my life, stayed, you know how they say ignorance is bliss, I actually think in my gut I would have been a little wealthier right now. So it's sort of ironic that I shot myself in the foot, but that was because I was trying to be outsmarting things, and I had hubris. And so I've learned from those painful lessons to guard myself next time, of don't fly too close to the sun. So that was my big lesson. So we're all human. We all make mistakes, and some things we do better at than others. And it's a journey, and I've forgiven myself for some of those mistakes in the past. So, that's all you can do is learn from mistakes and move on. And yeah, any last words, Signe?
I'm sitting here smiling because I also want to admit that Phil Town option strategies, I was not doing good on that either. However, there are other option strategies out there that are much better and much more long-term and safe, and actually that I really benefit from today. But yeah, I also had to learn my lesson with some of that. Love Phil Town and the way he teach about Buffett, but some of the options that he does is definitely very risky. But I really appreciate the conversation we have here. It's super interesting to actually learn also from you, Michelle, and your thoughts and your journey. Thank you so much for sharing. I don't have anything else to add, so we'll be back on Tuesday.
Till next time.
If you enjoyed the show and found the content informational, we would be super grateful if you would leave us a review and follow us wherever you get your podcasts, so you automatically get new episodes in your feed. We publish a new show every Tuesday.
The contents of the Investing Mastermind podcast are for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. None of this is investing advice, and if you need help in your personal situation, please consult with a professional.